A lot of people walk through life believing that they are the exception to the rule, not in a loud way, but in a quiet, hopeful way. They don't say it outright, but you'll hear it in how they talk. Things are different with me. They're not like that with me. My situation is different. They would never treat me like that. And I get it. Believing you're the exception feels comforting. It feels optimistic. It feels like proof that life is finally cutting you some slack. But the uncomfortable truth that people usually figure out later is if you were truly the exception, the rule would not keep applying. Rules do not come from imagination. They come from repetition. They're patterns that people notice after watching the same story play out over and over and over again, just with different names, faces, and excuses. Somebody once told me that none of us are making new mistakes. And ever since I heard that, that really has resonated with me and stuck in my brain because that's the truth. We all think that what is happening to us is just our experience, when 9 times out of 10, it's not. When somebody says, don't mix business with pleasure, I'm pretty sure they have a reason. When people say you shouldn't let your friends or your family work for you, it's usually for a reason. When they say, watch how they treat other people, or this is what they've done to so and so, or how you get them is how you lose them. People are speaking from experience. They're not speaking in hypotheticals. They are speaking directly from outcomes. But sometimes when you're standing inside of a situation, when you're into the thick of it, your perspective gets blurry because your hope for whatever situation that you may be in exceeds the prior history when you are personally invested. So instead of people asking, so what usually happens? What's usually the outcome? People ask, well, what if I'm different than them? I.e., Summer Walker being with a man who is a known deadbeat and thinking that he wouldn't do it to her. And now he's a deadbeat to your kids. I mean, a prime example of thinking that you are the exception to the rule. Too many people think that they, in fact, are different from everybody else when the whole point of a rule being a rule is that this is how these things usually go. This is usually the pattern. You are usually falling into the pattern. If a man is abusive and all he dates are meek, mild, timid women who wouldn't fight back or argue, and you are a woman who is, in fact, meek, mild, quiet, you don't argue, and you think that he's not going to do to you what he's did to other women, you're crazy. And sometimes that question is not confidence, it is avoidance. Believing that you are the exception allows you to postpone acceptance. It lets you stay longer, explain more, ignore red flags without calling them that. Because as long as you believe the rule doesn't apply to you, you don't have to make a decision yet. But here's the quiet caveat. Here's the truth. Exceptions do not need convincing. They don't require effort to be proven. They don't ask you to override your instincts. If something only works when you ignore the pattern, that is not an exception, that is a delay. Your time is coming. Way too often do people confuse optimism with wisdom. Optimism is saying, I hope this works out. And wisdom is saying, how often does this work out? You catch my drift? That difference matters, especially in relationships, careers, and choices that cost time and money, because time is usually the price you pay for insisting you're special in a predictable situation. And listen, this isn't about being pessimistic or cynical. It's about being honest with yourself. Sometimes the rule isn't there to limit you, it's there to protect you from repeating something you'll later have to recover from. And the part that really humbles people is most of us don't realize we were not the exception until we've already lived through the lesson. Again, hindsight being 2020, that's when you look back and say, wow, they warned me. Damn. I thought I was different. I didn't think he was gonna do me like that. He's done every other woman like that, but me? I would have never thought he would have did me like that. Sister, I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. You're not the exception to the rule. Very rarely is anybody. And there's no shame in that because that's how learning works. But the growth part shows up when you stop asking, why didn't this work for me? And you start asking yourself, why did I believe that I would be the one person that the pattern skipped? That the rule would not apply to me. Because if something fails 9 times out of 10, the 10th time isn't confidence, it's probability. And once we start accepting that, decision making gets easier. You don't need speeches. You don't need reassurance. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You just recognize the patterns early and move accordingly. Sometimes wisdom isn't about believing you're extraordinary. It's about knowing when a rule exists for a reason and respecting it before it collects interest. If this hit home for you or you know exactly what I'm talking about, let me know in the comments.